Okay, welcome to Marvel Plus, the podcast devoted to all things MCU. My name is Brett Scott. I am your host, and this is the show. And we have a brand new guest today, but you're not new to the podcast because we actually met at GalaxyCon a few weeks ago, and you were one of the people in the audience, and you actually had a lot of input while we were there. So there's a lot of back and forth with the audience there, and that's what makes it a lot of fun going to that. But we have Zoe McCallum, right? Is that how you
Yep,
say it?
yep, okay.
Um,
One of the few people to actually get that correct.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. You were very enthusiastic at the show,
Oh, yes, my
and
friend talked my ear off for the rest of the night. She was so mad at me.
you you were a big part of the podcast that we did. I mean, we had a lot of audience interaction, and you interacted probably more than anyone, or as much as anyone else there that was like in the little front row there, right by.
Definitely
And
the other person sitting beside me had a lot of fun with it too. It was a great evening.
yeah, for sure. And then when you reached out and said like, hey, yeah, I'm interested in being a guest, because I think I said something at the show like, if you want to come on, just hit me up. And you reached out, and I'm like, awesome, because I know that you're very enthusiastic, you're a big fan of the MCU, and you seem to know the MCU pretty well, so I thought that you'd be a good
Yeah.
guest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit nothing was the same after Endgame, but I'm too emotionally invested to drop it, people.
I think that's most of
you
us.
know,
I think we're all in the same boat. um, Things in the MCU are insane right now. Like, we have no idea what's going to happen. Like, really, it
yeah, I
had a
guess.
path, and now it's like, does it have the same path anymore? I don't know.
Well, they lost their path with officially dropping Jonathan Majors, so.
Yes, yes. So yeah, that's the big question I've been asking everybody is like, what do you think's better? Do you think it better to continue on with like a stand-in, a different actor to portray like a variant of Kang, or do we just switch storylines and kind of move forward?
I saw a post on, I want to say it was Instagram, of like people really, like someone really fighting for that street level again and
Uh-huh.
wanting to move Kingpin forward as the next
Hmm.
villain, which could be an interesting take given the fact that, like, after Thanos,
Hmm.
but I guess that would be an avenue to take if you want to go emotional investment because, well,
Yeah.
the Daredevil fans are quite enthusiastic.
Yes, and you're one of them, right? You're a huge
Yeah,
Daredevil fan, correct?
yeah. I showed up. Yeah, I forgot I showed up to the podcast dressed up as Matt Murdock.
Yeah, and convincingly so. It was a great costume. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Yeah,
And I found it interesting too that you came as Matt Murdock and not Daredevil. That was great.
well, that's because I'm poor and can't afford a suit.
Yeah, just put a suit on. It works. Um, no, I adore the Netflix Daredevil series. I mean, I don't know how many times I've rewatched it. I think it's one of the best things, period, that Marvel has made ever. So,
Yeah, the opening scene. Not I guess it's not the opening scene, but like after I think it's like after the theme song plays on the first episode, that monologue is
mhm,
easily one of Marvel's best like
yeah,
things.
yeah. There, I mean, it's got me like, that's some of the stuff I'm most excited about and worried about going forward, is like them bringing that Daredevil in and trying to do a Daredevil Born Again series. Like, I'm both excited because it's the characters I know and love, and I'm worried that it won't be the characters that I know and
Yeah.
love, really. You
I
know?
mean, I know there was I John Bernthal, so the Punisher, was
Hmm.
saying that he would refuse to touch a project if they were going to ruin it, like if they
Yeah,
were going to take all the grit from it. And
yeah,
given the roles that he's played in the past in other films, I kind of am inclined to believe that he would walk.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, Another one of my favorite series is the Punisher series. Like, I like Bernthal and just about anything that I've seen him in, and I get it. Like, yeah, why would you want like a watered down version of a character that you were invested in playing like that? Like, I would be upset too. But it seems like, given that Echo trailer and how kind of dark themed that seemed, and the fact that we know we're getting a Deadpool 3 that is rated R, that they're not going to be afraid to go dark and gritty. And so that's, I mean, that at least is some good news, I think.
During the panel with Vincent D'Onofrio, I had like asked a question in regards to like how they felt the tone of the production was saying, and like they weren't allowed to say much, but he's like, take a look at the Echo trailer, that'll tell
Yeah,
you a lot for the
that's
tone of the
awesome.
new show.
That I'm so happy to hear that. I really am. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that Echo. That the only thing is this release schedule. I don't know why they're playing with the release schedule so much, but like dropping all 5 episodes on the same day, they're trying to kill me as a podcaster. I don't know why they're doing this.
Yeah, I mean, take the day off work, binge them
Yeah,
all, and we and have like a 5-hour podcast.
yeah. No, that actually kind of sounds like a plan. Maybe I'll just make it a weekend podcast and invite 5 people on all at once and do a big roundtable for it.
Yeah,
That might work.
I was like, definitely if you could swing people even like meeting up in person for that would probably help
Oh yeah,
dynamics and yeah, do
yeah.
whatever. I know libraries usually have recording spaces.
Yeah, no, I've never done an in-person one like that. But I've used those like the meeting rooms that they have and stuff to do podcasts. So, um, yeah, it's actually a good place because it's pretty quiet, obviously it's a library. But I think you're like one of the only people I know that's semi-local because most of the people I meet are online through the podcast. So you would be the only person there probably if we planned an in-person podcast.
I suppose I was thinking, all the people at this convention, oh, they might be interested. They probably live in Ohio.
Right, right. Yeah, a lot of them live somewhere else. Like the guy I had with me doing the show, Alejandro, is from Cleveland, so like he
Yeah.
travels down every year, and that's why he was there. But um, yeah, I'm hoping to go up and do that Cleveland show as well. There's like a Cleveland show every year, and I didn't get picked for it last year, so I'm hoping I can get up there.
When's that one?
I think it's in the spring. I'm pretty sure, and it's called Fan Expo Cleveland, but it's very similar to GalaxyCon.
I don't know.
So
I'd be interested in going. Yeah. Thanks.
yeah, totally. Um, so let's talk about What If a little bit. So before we started recording, you were telling me that you were a much bigger fan, so far at least, of season 1. Like you like season 1 a lot better than what you've seen so far in season 2.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was like, well, when you have a clip of Hawkeye, who is one of my like underrated favorites, I would say,
Oh
is
yeah.
a clip of him saying my will to live meter is flatlining, like mood.
Mm.
Just like
I
certain like funny lines like that just are, you know.
Yeah, I love his kind of deadpan, like dry humor. Like he just drops in lines, very nonchalant. Like he's super serious, but it's not. It's funny. Um, but probably still my favorite of the MCU series so far is the Hawkeye series.
Yeah,
Did you enjoy it?
well, I made it a Christmas tradition the year it came out to watch it every Christmas. So I was
It's so
doing that this past weekend.
it's so good. It really is. If you look, there's like people have like kind of collected the MCU Christmas stuff, and like they like to watch that around Christmas. So there's like Iron Man 3 they call a Christmas movie, and then
Yeah.
obviously the Guardians holiday special, and then Hawkeye is on there as well. So, but yeah, I think of all these series, Hawkeye has been the best in my opinion.
Okay, look, if I had had more money when it was becoming a thing, I would have totally gone on the Disney cruise and watched Roger the Musical for
Oh yeah,
real.
yeah. I was so happy that they actually made that.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
Well, I feel like if they made it like an actual play, it would sell.
yeah, absolutely. That whole series was so good. I was kind of worried when they brought in Kingpin, and because he didn't quite feel like the same Kingpin, and that's what had me worried about like upcoming Daredevil stuff. But seeing the tone of the Echo trailer kind of changed me on that. I think they realize they need to keep that darker. But I enjoyed. Do you read comics?
I've read a few of them. I have the Matt Fraction run of
Okay.
Hawkeye, but I have not read that one yet.
Well, you should, because you'll if you like that series, it's like pretty much covered in that run. Like they pulled straight from that and used most of that storyline in the series. So it's so good. I hadn't read it either until I watched the series and someone was like, "Oh, this is just like the Matt Fraction run." So I went and read it and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is the same thing. Like the tone of it, the colors that they use, the lighting, like everything feels like that Matt Fraction run." So I think you'll really enjoy it.
I still need to read The Born Again. I also got that, which I got signed, so at GalaxyCon, which is fun.
I will tell you, reading Born Again, it's like I don't want to dampen your hopes, but I will tell you that I expected more from it. I think it was because it had been so built up, and I hear a lot about the entire like Frank Miller run on Daredevil and like how good that is altogether, like the Elektra stuff that we saw in the series and all that. And Born Again really only covers like a very tiny portion, and there's like no Elektra in it. And it's like it surprised me that I was like, oh, that's all that other stuff must be in other parts of the Frank Miller run, because
I mean,
it was good.
But out of Matt's love interest, I'd actually say Elektra's probably my least favorite, given the context of the Netflix show. I don't feel like she was done proper justice.
I will tell you, they go pretty damn dark with Karen Page's story in the comic book. Like, it's a lot darker than they put on Netflix. Like her background, and I don't want to ruin it because that's probably the best part of the story is like Karen Page's part of it. Really good stuff.
Yeah, which is not in the show. So.
Yeah,
that's another podcast.
Yes, which I'd be happy to do sometime. But yeah, right now we're talking about What If and how you like season 1 better than season 2.
Despite me not liking Multiverse of Madness, I think we briefly talked about it on the pod at GalaxyCon, but it wasn't like one of the year's releases, so we didn't really talk about it too much.
Right.
I don't think they really pulled off the Strange variant very well. It kind of felt, I guess okay, hot Marvel take here. I am not a fan of Sam Raimi's style.
I get it. So, I mean, that movie like leaned a lot into like his horror film resume, like, you know, trying to be a little bit horror-ish, and I'm not sure it needed that tone.
Yeah, it felt tonally wrong.
Yeah, a little bit. I agree. I was kind of let down by that. Like, I had big hopes for Multiverse of Madness, and then after seeing it, I was like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but I expected way more. I expected way more universes to be visited. I expected way more like variants to be in it, and I was a little underwhelmed. But so is that what you liked about season 1 so much?
So I do like kind of the connectiveness of Sorcerer Supreme within What If, and I also do like getting more Natasha and Clint content, because as much as I love the idea of Dad Hawkeye, I do think they could have been a good pairing.
Sure. Yeah. No, I actually forgot about the episode that they had where they were like a big part of it. I forgot about that. I haven't revisited What If season 1 in a while, probably since it aired. So there was some good stuff in there. But yeah, I think so far at least, but it remains to be seen. But so far, it doesn't seem as connected, right? Like they really brought everything together in season 1 to where all the universes we knew and saw kind of met up in the last 2 episodes or something. And it seems like they're going that direction with this, but like they're bringing back some elements from season 1, showing us that like, oh, these are characters that you already know. I think the second or no, I think the last episode that's going to air is about Strange Supreme.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I mean, for you, hopefully it's going that direction and it will all like tie together and make you a bigger fan. So far season 2 I've really liked because every episode has sounded like it wouldn't pique my interest at all. And then once I get into it, I'm like, oh, this is a cool spin. Like the premise didn't sound great. Like, what if Happy Hogan saved Christmas? That does not give away at all what the
No.
episode is
Okay,
about,
honestly,
right?
I was so excited for that one, and I was so disappointed.
Or why?
I'm into the really cheesy, corny Christmas specials of the TV shows.
Yeah.
So like, I know people like will groan and be like another one, but I just when he gets and it just felt more like a gag, like a story gag, than they were actually trying to like pull a specific story off.
Yeah.
And also, there's like the whole like concept of like the Avengers Tower AU. Like there was a lot of potential for jokes in dialect and interactions there that wasn't even like touched.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I like the episode. I think so far, though, it's probably my least favorite of the three before this one. Um, but I'm a big Christmas guy too. Like I love Christmas stuff. I start listening to Christmas music at, like the day after Halloween. I know it drives people insane, but um, yeah, it could have been more Christmassy, like for sure, and more like Avengers oriented. Like they don't show up until the end, and there could have been a lot more interactions there, like
Yeah.
within
Also,
within the team and
I
stuff.
feel like Captain America and Bruce Banner looked way too similar, and
Yeah,
even Hawkeye, even like they all kind of look the same, which they
yeah.
didn't in season one, but they kind of blurred the art a little bit, which also didn't help.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, okay. So, well, what did you think about this very Tony Stark centric episode?
Okay, well, I didn't see the second day of the con, but I was dressed as Tony Stark, and
Oh, okay.
I have a rack of different Tony Stark sunglasses on the wall. So,
Nice.
okay, I will say it not being Robert Downey Jr. I mean, I understand he's expensive, but like, it
It
sounds
sucks.
off in my head.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I feel the same way. I'm like, oh man, it's not the same.
It's like not that the guy did a bad job at all. Like he did the best he could, and it still was. I still enjoyed the episode, but it's like, and he like kind of tries to like do the intonation. I'm like, but I feel
Yeah.
like that specifically almost would have been better if maybe perhaps he just tried to do his own spin on it.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, the delivery was Tony Stark. Like it felt like obviously that's the character that's being portrayed here. But yeah, man, just it throws it off a little bit when it's not RDJ.
I guess yeah. Well, okay. So this is what I thought when I was watching it for the first time: is that a writer took what Robert Downey Jr. did as improv and tried to create a script with the same.
Mm,
So they tried to script what was essentially magic.
yeah. Yeah, like what he would probably improv. Yeah, that sounds about right. Like they tried to do Robert Downey Jr. more so than Tony Stark, and you can't do that when it's not off the cuff. Like I do feel like a lot of his stuff was probably improv, right? Like throughout the MCU.
He says that it is like in interviews. He admits that a lot of like the nicknames, the witty comebacks
Yeah.
are improv.
Well, it's great because I mean that makes the character. I mean, it's like that just proves that he was the perfect person to play Tony Stark all along.
Here comes.
I'm sorry. So, but this okay. So there's another twist on this episode too because it does tie in a little bit, right? With the Guardians of the Multiverse from season 1, right? Like the team that they assembled to face Ultron, and we get the background of that version of Gamora in this as well. So Tony Stark at the end of the first Avengers film, 2012 Avengers, flies out into space, throws the nuke or whatever into the wormhole. But in this reality, he gets stuck on the other side, and then he goes whirling through and basically wrecks into Sakaar and ends up the same place where we saw Hulk and Thor
in Ragnarok.
We get Jeff Goldblum, which is great. What did you think about just this whole concept of like them on Sakaar and being forced to like do this like a death race?
I mean, I feel like it was a better alternative to Tony being like in a gladiator match. Like I feel like that totally wouldn't have fit that wouldn't have fit with his personality. I do feel like his emotional development presented in the TV episode was way more than it was at the time in the MCU storyline.
Yeah, true. Because at that point, he was still just pretty much just quippy Tony Stark. There wasn't a lot of emotional storyline going on at that point.
His party days were very much so not over at.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So we get this Gamora, who she's basically been sent out to track down Tony Stark because of him defeating her father, and she's on a mission to kill him or bring him back to Thanos, and that's how she gets kind of roped into it as well. So it's her and Tony and Korg, and they're all like in a cell together, and then they basically Tony makes a deal with the Grandmaster to like a face off, a death race, whatever. They're going to race each other. They're going to have a pod race, right? And the winner gets to rule the planet, which seems crazy. I love though that everyone around the Grandmaster keeps trying to convince him, like, you already rule the planet. You don't need to do this at all. This is the stupidest deal to ever take.
You know, the Grandmaster canonically is kind of, is
stupid. Yes, but believes he's an absolute genius. Well, and people like let him believe that. That's what's, that's the whole thing. He has all yes men around him usually. So, they do the race, and Gamora actually ends up helping Tony out. Like in the end, helping him to defeat the Grandmaster, but it's really to no avail because the Grandmaster is like, well, I decide the winner and I decide that it's me. So, but.
And then Valkyrie steps in.
Yes, and then Valkyrie plays a big part in the episode as well, right? Like she's all throughout it, and anytime we get Tessa Thompson again, like I love.
Which is there a reasoning to why obviously it happens in the Thor movies, and then but also present here, why she's always like announced as king?
I don't know. I don't know what that is. I'm not sure, but. Yeah, she's king of New Asgard. She's king of Sakaar now.
It's like a funny thing that they like never explain to my knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't recall ever an explanation of that.
Yeah. Tis what it is. She's the king. That's what it is. But so she ends up being crowned the king in the end. The Grandmaster gets turned into a puddle of goo. which we end up seeing in the
Yeah,
post credit.
yeah, the end credit scene, the only What If episode of season 2 to have an end credit scene, and I'm a little bit emotionally traumatized.
And I'm also a bit disappointed, man. Like I kind of hate when they do an end credit scene and it's completely like irrelevant, like just dumb humor, because you expect, like, when they don't do them often, that you're gonna get like something good, and it's like, oh, he's a puddle of goo. Okay, all
It
right, but
very much so gave Quantumania what's like the MODOK vibes.
yeah, it was weird, and how he's like, sponge me up, soak me up, like it was very strange, very
Yeah,
strange
no,
interaction.
yeah, that's why I wanted that. I threw up a little bit in my mouth.
Yeah, yeah. So what did you think about, though, that like that final scene when Gamora's like, I still got to take you back, like, and she takes him to Thanos, and then I guess does she have that?
She has the pokey stick, whatever it's
Yeah,
called.
that like makes goo out of people, right?
Yeah.
So we imagine that there's a little purple puddle of goo as well now
I
out there
mean,
somewhere.
but you know the Marvel rule, body or it didn't happen.
Yeah,
So
we didn't see the purple goo.
exactly.
So
Well, I feel like they're kind of trying to take a parallel on the scene from, I want to say it's Infinity War, Tony and Thanos' like first true interaction when Tony finds out that Thanos did know who he was.
yeah, which was still never really explained, and I think like maybe this is what they're saying is like the explanation. Do you think, like,
I feel like that's two separate events and two separate storylines.
I
But like
was thinking that too.
yeah, like that within the MCU storyline, I guess Tony and his inventions must have just been popular enough to have reached intergalactically.
Yeah,
Versus, you know, this. I guess you could fall under the same presumption, but I feel like that should have been a longer like dialogue. You know, like them talking.
yeah. They literally met face to face, and then she comes in and pokes him with the pokey, right?
Yeah, that should have been a much longer scene.
Yeah, should have been. It should have been a big deal because, yeah, at that time, remember, I think they even like mentioned in the episode, Tony had no idea who Thanos was, like, and then he's like, "You know me?" Like it was like it was a big thing, and it he. Oh, I don't remember what I was gonna say. I don't remember what I was gonna say.
Well, but also, well, the Grandmaster does say something like in the beginning of that episode when they put Tony's video up on the screen, like the feeder of Thanos.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
that's also never really explained. Like the whole time situation in Sakaar. It kind of feels like a cop out, like because I believe they mentioned something like that in Ragnarok as well. Where it's like, oh, it doesn't all actually matter.
Yeah, and also when they did that, when it was like the Grandmaster knew who he was and everything, and they had already heard about the news from Earth and stuff about defeating Thanos, like, yeah, what is this saying? Is it saying like that wherever they're at right now that happened a long time ago? Like, is it relativity or something? You know what I mean? Like, maybe
Yeah.
time passes at a different speed there. I don't know.
Is it a canon event?
Right. Maybe it always happens that way. Like, but and yeah, and then there's also that, right? Like, because we're to assume that they're now in a different reality when Tony goes through the wormhole and then ends up on Sakaar because Gamora is there. Like, if that Gamora wasn't there, then maybe I don't know. Because sometimes in the episode, I got the feeling like we were in the same, like, MCU Prime,
Yeah.
616 reality. Yeah, like because of the stuff that they showed on the screen and everything, and that they knew about Tony Stark and all that, and that Thanos had never met him, and all like everything else seemed like it was 616 universe. But I guess technically, because something different happened. It was a slightly different
Yeah.
universe.
I
Like,
was so badly wanting more Tony and Pepper content, but they had to cut it. I was like,
yeah, there was like none,
I was
really.
disappointed. Holding on
Yeah.
to the past of and the MCU.
They're like forever doomed to be separated by time and space for long periods of time. That's just the way it's got to be, I think.
Yeah, but like as much as much as the person who plays Pepper is interesting as a person,
Interesting.
uh,
That
we don't again another podcast.
that's a word. Yeah, interesting.
But I do really like Pepper as a character in the movies.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and I feel like
Yeah.
there could have been a lot more of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And that's the thing about this series is like there's always it kind of leaves you wanting to know more stuff always. Whenever they give you just one little peek into this slightly different universe, you're always like, "Whoa, I wonder how that would play out if it keeps going. Like what happens if Thanos really was a pile of purple goo and how like if we go forward from there, how do things play out?" Like there's never Infinity War, there's never Endgame, but uh some other baddie obviously is going to show up. So who knows how that ended up playing out? Or does Tony ever make it home? Or like how long is he stuck out there in space? Does he make it back to
But
Pepper?
well,
Like
yeah, and I feel like they could make like a sitcom almost of like what happened during the snap. Like I feel like that could have been, that would have huge potential.
yeah, there's a lot of there's a ton of material there. Like they could yeah. How many stories could you get out of like what happened in those 5 years? Because it's so glossed over. I mean, not it's not glossed over. They go into like how devastating it was, obviously, in Endgame. And throughout some of these series, like with Monica Rambeau and her mother and things like that. But there's so many series and stories there for the
Yeah.
taking.
I want the sitcom of Tony Stark having to learn how to parent. Like,
Yes, that whole family dynamic for Tony Stark becoming a family man.
yeah, well, if you've seen Agent Carter, you
Hmm.
know that Howard Stark did not parent that child. You know that
Right.
that was all Edwin Jarvis, Peggy Carter.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can get that from uh, even just the films. It's like what an absent father he was, and yeah, Tony had no real model of what a dad should be, other than like ultra successful, right? And like,
Yeah, which the whole like daddy issues joke thing felt a little cheesy in the What If
uh huh,
episode. Like,
yeah,
you gotta create more emotional grounds to be able to make those jokes first.
yeah, come on, yeah, they just poked fun at the fact that everyone in the MCU has daddy issues. I guess
I mean,
it's a
sort
theme.
of.
Yeah, it's definitely a theme. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of mommy issues in the MCU. That's true.
Uh, sure.
I don't know. Is there? I don't know. I just feel like
Uh,
they focus on father relationships.
I mean, a lot of the characters have dead mothers.
Oh, I guess that's true. Yeah, that's a theme. I think that's just a comic book theme. Like, if your parents aren't, if at least one of them hasn't died, you're not going to be a superhero of any sort.
Yeah, if you run through the original six, okay, Bruce Banner did entire childhood traumatized.
Yep.
There's no salvaging any wholesome anything in that. Natasha never knew her parents. Clint, both parents died because his dad drank and you know drove drunk. Captain America. They don't talk about his parents ever, so who knows what his.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but, they're either dead or they never knew who they were. So
Yeah.
basically,
Absent parents create superheroes. That's the theme here. That's the
exactly.
lesson. Yeah, that's the lesson to learn from comic books and superhero films. Um, Okay. Well, how do you rank this episode? I know you said you haven't been a huge fan of this season so far, but how do you rank this one of the four we've seen so far?
I would say probably this one is my favorite, then
Okay.
the Nova Corps one, then the
Okay.
Peter Quill one, and then the Happy Hogan one.
Yeah, I think I close to agree with that. I actually really surprisingly loved the Nova Corps one. Like I didn't expect to, but when that started out all detective noir and like it felt like Blade Runner, I was like, there's all these themes. I love that.
When I
I
first,
did.
yeah, when
Go
I
ahead.
first kind of watched it, I was like a little, but then I like thought about it more. I was like, yeah, it's actually pretty well done.
Hmm. Yeah. I did like that the Happy Hogan episode was basically Die Hard playing out in the MCU. That was entertaining to me. But like you said, I feel like there could have been more Christmas. There could have been more like Avengers fun and jokes and holiday stuff. But yeah, I did like that they did the Die Hard thing and mentioned Reginald Vell Johnson and
Yeah, okay. I mean, I did like Justin Hammer in that episode. You know, he's
yeah,
supposed to piss you off, so
yeah, yeah, and he does. Every version of him pisses me off. Like whether it's in Iron Man or in one of the animated series, like he's always the worst, and he's supposed to be, right?
yeah, but yeah, that's the point. I was like, I do. Well, I think it's the same guy who plays him in the MCU. Because it sounds
Yeah,
like it is.
it is for sure. It is. Yeah, they got him back, which is fantastic. I don't even want to say. It drives me crazy when I can't think of a name, even though it's a very well-known person. So I've got it here.
Yeah, I was
Um,
like, I can't think of what the guy's name is.
oh, I'm stupid. I'm looking at today's episode. Like I'm gonna find the like I'm gonna
I would,
find the info.
I would have
Yeah,
just
no,
looked
that
up
was yesterday.
Iron Man 2's guy.
Yeah. All
But
right.
no,
It doesn't matter. Um, well, hey, I'd love to have you on for like a longer episode. These ones are, a little shorter just by nature. But I'd love to have you back on when we get some longer stuff. Like,
yeah,
do you want to come back? So I know you're a big Daredevil person,
oh,
Kingpin.
100%,
Do you want?
100%.
So you're gonna
Well,
come back
weren't
for Echo?
oh yes. Well, weren't you said something about at the pods? I never find the episodes like on your YouTube or anything about you like recapping the MCU.
Oh yeah, I do it on Patreon. So it's
Oh,
on
that's
like the
why I couldn't
Patreon.
find it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do those the old ones on Patreon. I usually do the new ones though, like ones that come out. I put them out directly on the podcast, and I'm just kind of doing that as an extra thing for Patreon people. But yeah, no, I definitely didn't. You want to do like
Civil
the
War.
Dark World? Oh, Civil War. I thought
Civil
someone
War.
else wanted to do. Somebody else wanted to do the Dark World. I was like, really? I didn't think anyone would volunteer to do the Dark
No,
World, but
no.
okay.
I was the one like Civil War, but like if you have me on for that, prepare to have 5 hours. We will dish this out and we will have a screening match and it will be an ordeal.
Okay. Okay, I'm down for it. I love when opinions differ because it can be kind of boring to be on here just constantly agreeing with each other, for an hour, and then it's like, all right, well, we agreed on everything. See you later. But that's one of the
Yeah,
reasons I
no,
like having on like new people all the time.
yeah. So where are you in that series?
In
Like
what, like working my
no,
way
your
through it?
recap. Yeah, your recap.
I'm still really early. The next one is Thor, the first Thor. So
I guess
I've got
I liked Ragnarok, but I don't like any of the other stories
yeah.
personally.
I'm I'm pretty much the same, especially not the fourth one. I'm
Okay,
adamant about how terrible the fourth one is.
okay. I guess well, it's not as bad as the second one. My opinion. But
Maybe they should have a death race to settle that one because they like they're similarly bad. I feel like, but you're probably right. I mean, like I think the Love and Thunder is probably less boring than the Dark World.
Yeah, maybe worse made, but like better.
Yeah, maybe so. All right. Well, I thank you for coming on and doing this episode. And like I said, I would love to have you back to talk about an episode of Echo if you're interested.
Yes. Oh yeah. I can't remember what day was it January 6th?
Or 10th, January 10th, maybe. But it's
Okay.
early January.
Yeah.
But I will make sure that I leave one of those episodes for you when I'm slating them out.
Yeah. I was like, definitely. I would probably almost want to go to the pilot just because I feel like that will give you the most to theorize and like.
Yeah. Okay. Come on for the pilot. I'm down. I'll put you down for the pilot episode. I don't know when I'll be recording it yet, but probably within the first day or two of it being released. So cool. We will set that up. But thank you for coming on and sharing your opinion on What If. And if I need someone again for What If, maybe you'll be available.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll do it again. That's like,
Cool. I appreciate it. And thank you too for coming to the show at GalaxyCon. That's awesome.
I know. I was like, I already saw you post about next year's. I was like, I probably will be there.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope that people come back because it's so much fun, and I love seeing like some of the same people each time. So
I'm
yeah,
a little tempted to try to host a panel.
you should. You should. It's nerve-wracking, but it's a lot of fun. It's
Yeah,
definitely though like I'm not a public speaker, believe it or not. I don't like I think I talked about that when I was there. I'm petrified of talking in front of people, so
yeah, I feel like my friend that was with me would murder me if I hosted because she knows exactly how it would turn out. But maybe that's
you
part of
should.
the fun.
It is. It is. It is. I encourage you to do it. You definitely should.
I need
Whatever
some.
subject you want to talk about.
Well, I need someone to deal with. Like that's how I operate. Like on my own, I am a very boring person. But
No,
I have someone else to talk.
somebody will do it with you. There's plenty of people around Columbus, and if you got no one else, maybe I'll do it. So just we'll keep it open.
Great.
We'll keep it open.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me on, and we'll see how
All
the
right.
rest of the series goes.
Cool. We'll talk again soon.
Bye,
See ya.
everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye. Okay. And